everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for episode 3 of the book of Boba Fett, The Streets of Mos Espa. So, odds are, because it's been a few days, you already understood the memes, you understand why I'm wearing my Power Ranger shirt, we got the Megazord here. It was a silly episode at the end, and that's what sucks, because it just makes it like, this was an episode, you know? And it really sucks because the first part of this episode I thought was really good. Episode 2, I thought was fantastic. I was excited for this one. We kick things off. It's like, alright, it keeps going. Then, boom, here's a flashback. I thought we were done, especially how I think that was the first time I personally felt like the transition was just like, alright, here's a transition. And it was like, oh, I thought that, typically it connects and then it goes through. And this was just like, here's a transition. It seems super fast. I think it was the first time they did the transition without us knowing he got into the tank. Not kind of like the very first one, because that was how they revealed it. But something about it was just super fast, and I was like, oh, that came out of nowhere. And then we found out it was like the final flashback. He took the bantha, he rides in the town, it's shaking its little puppet head, and it was really cool. And he gets to the town, he talks to the Pikes, who don't look as cool. I realize now, I knew it was something I couldn't put my finger on in the last episode, because I'm like, I feel like it was them. I couldn't think of the name 100%, and I was like, I think it is them. And the thing that was throwing me off was the fact that the masks that they wear look more like their faces in animation. Like, they look like super scrawny. They look more alien, I guess, so to speak. But they're super scrawny. They only have, like, 4 fingers. And they always have those masks on. And I always was like, I'm not 100% sure if it's a mask or if that's actually what their face looks like. But I think their faces are... Their faces definitely aren't just like fish faces. I can tell you, they have like tiny tendrils, but they definitely look more like fish people here than they do in the animation, where you don't see them take anything off. That's why I was always like, I'm not 100% sure if it's even a mask, but even then, they don't wear like they have hoods, but it's not like how they wear. It seems like they wear like robes with the hoods and stuff, and it hides like every part of their body until they take the mask off. It wasn't like that in the animation. Like, you saw their arms; they all had like, if anything, they had like t-shirt vests, short sleeve vests. It seemed like what they were always wearing. And they were super skinny, and then they had the like small hoods and the mask. So they were always super cool in that. And I don't feel like they were as cool in this when it was like, okay, now that I have a full understanding, like, yes, this is definitely the Pikes, and this is who I was thinking of, because I made sure to look it up. I was like, yeah, they don't look as epic. Sure, they'll still be entertaining. It'll be war or whatever. And this will actually be the first time anyone's truly gone up against them. At least, as far as I know. They could have had some more stuff in comics, but for the most part, this is like a Clone Wars era type situation. And this group is not to be F with. Like, they're in one of the episodes of the Bad Batch, and that was probably one of the better episodes, because the Pikes are always just that really intense character. They're like the group version of Cad Bane, I think, is the best example I could give. Like, the Pikes are just a mass version of Cad Bane not caring and waiting to kill somebody else. That's pretty much how they are, except they sell more goods. Like, he's a bounty hunter, they sell stuff. They sell the spice, which we saw in the last one. But I wish they still use their voice. Like, maybe just leave them in the mask the whole time, and then use like the voice that they have in the Clone Wars, which, if you've never heard it, it is phenomenal. Like, just look up the Pikes. I think it's P-Y-K-E-S. Look them up, and they're way cooler in animation. Like, they do like the voice. They're super calm. Like, whenever someone's freaking out, they're the calm, scary person, whereas like they have guns pointed at them, and it's like, I mean, you could kill me, but then you'll be dead. And that's pretty much it. I'm like, well, of course I would be. It's like, do you want that? Like, they just say like 2 things, and then everything's calm. It's like, that's what I thought. So we'll see how interesting they actually get. But I kind of wish they still use the voice, which means they could have just left the mask on instead of even doing prosthetics. It could have been people in masks. Maybe people would have complained about that because it's live action, so people would be like, you want to see different this or that, and it would be too much to do that with either CG or even practically, as far as having like skinnier versions. You'd have to have just really skinny people, and then probably still do CG to make it fit the animation style. So they did what they had to do, but it's not my favorite live action adaptation. The characters could still be great though. It's always been a big group, and no one really goes against them, so this will kind of be the first time, and we'll see what happens, because I know everyone's still kind of upset about like Boba Fett hasn't done enough. The Pikes are just like Boba Fett as far as animation is concerned. Like, if they don't do something cool and they're going to war, that's going to mess up their characters too. And that really sucks, because I'm like, people probably don't know them live action wise, but for animation fans, they're always creepy and like really, really dangerous. And I'm like, I hope they stick with that, because they already seem like they haven't stuck with like tough Boba Fett. I know a lot of people are upset by it. I'm okay with it, as long as they actually get to the point where he fights. 3 episodes in, the stories have joined together officially, because I'm like, this has to be, at least this is the last flashback of the Tusken stuff. He might do other stuff, like they might show us the stuff where he met Finnick, but as far as the Tusken Raiders, they're literally dead. Unless they surprise us and somehow the female Tusken warrior shows up again, but still in the flashbacks, which I think would be really dumb. Unless that happens, the Tusken part is over, so maybe the next section is Finnick, and then they'll tell that story up to the Mandalorian, and then maybe they'll do that in the next 2 episodes, and then the last 3 episodes, I'm not sure 100% how many we have left, but maybe the last 3 will just be all modern times and no flashbacks. But we still have that weird stuff with him constantly seeing his dad. They show it every episode, and it seems like it gets longer and longer each episode. And I'm kind of just waiting. At this point, they might just do a scene of him as a kid. They might do a flashback of him on I totally can't, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but Kamino. Maybe they'll actually show him on Kamino and do like a full crazy, CG version of his character. I don't know, but like a part of me is like, it's hard for me to tell if they're just gonna start showing some stuff. So I'm excited to see where things go, but this episode really disappointed me. It was a really good start with the flashback. The Black Chrysanthemum fight was really cool. I wish he killed one of the kids 100%. And I know I'm skipping, past him meeting the kids. I was in the middle. It was the Vespas, and I'll talk about that since we got a whole chase to look at them. I'll wait to talk about them in general when I get to the end of the episode. But I was still okay with it. I was like, all right, don't like how they look, but I'm okay with it. He did an interesting thing with Stephen Merchant, which was really cool, and he pissed him off. Now he's going to need the stapler back. So we'll see what happens there, but he gave him like 500 instead of the 1,300, and he hired the kids, and they aren't even going to do anything to pay him back, and he only gave the dude 500. It was the first time I felt he showed his dominance, but it was the one time where I was like, I don't know if that was the smartest idea. It was really weird because it was the first time he seemed really creepy and scary, and he was like, this is my town, and you'll accept the 500 like I just said. And then it was just like, that seemed like the one time he shouldn't have done that and actually been cool with the dude that was going to double his profits, or his inheritance, or whatever they call it, I keep forgetting. But I'm like, that's weird. That was the first time I felt he was like super dark and tough. And I was like, that was the one time I felt like it wouldn't have worked. And it didn't, for me at least. But, they keep going. The Black Chrysanthemum fight. And I thought that was great. Really cool. Wish he killed a kid, like I said. Just because I thought, I still don't care about any of them. Only 3 of them I really even remember. And I think there's 5 or 6. Because you have the dude with the eye, who makes me think of Star Trek. And that's just a me thing. Like, if you've seen Star Trek, one thing on the eye is like, it's either DBZ or Star Trek for me, and it was Star Trek for this one, so I was like, I can't help it. That was just a me thing. I'm like, they didn't do anything wrong with the the eyepiece, but I'm like, it should have been like maybe a different color or something, but I'm just like, yeah, that's Star Trek to me. I can't help it. But it was him, because he was at the end, the girl who had like the robotic arm, and then the other guy who seemed to actually play a really important part in the chase was the dude who had the like torch underneath his wrist. So those are the 3 characters. And I'm pretty sure there were 2 others, maybe even 3 others. And so I'm like, they definitely could have killed one of the other 2, because they were all in there. And I'm like, if they don't have a line even, just kill them off now and say they got through the fight exactly the same. Whatever fight they're coming up against, they could duck behind a corner just long enough to survive with 1 less person. They could have easily killed somebody. And I think it would have been fine, because they're just going to be in a big action sequence anyway. And it's like, you don't have to have every moment, every character get a moment. They could just kill them off now, at least one of them. So I was kind of disappointed that he didn't actually end up getting to kill anybody, but it was cool that they all had to work together to capture him and stuff. I wish Boba actually got a few more hits in. I was, of course, like everybody, I was hoping that somehow he'd pull like one of the miraculous hero moves where he would just survive the one-on-one fight to begin with. Like he would like maybe slowly get his armor on and stuff like that. I feel like that would have been a little bit cooler, but that doesn't really happen. He basically gets choked out. I thought I'm like, maybe this is a dream sequence, because it seemed like it already went far enough to where he wasn't even twitching. And I was like, oh, I think he's just dead now. But I guess he was like this close. And then she shot Black Chrysanthemum and he dropped him. Because I'm like, I think he's at least unconscious. I thought he was going to be unconscious the whole fight. And then he got up and it was like, oh, okay. He did have to, he had to wait a minute and get his robes on. But I'm like, all right, they caught him. It was decent. The stuff with the Jawas, or not the Jawas, the Jabbas, the Hutts, I thought that was cool. Fairly simple. Hey, we tried to kill you. That didn't work. Clearly, you're alive. Here's a gift. And then that's it. They take off. Here's a gift. Here's a Rancor and Danny Trejo. Decent. That was pretty cool. We learned a bit about the Rancor. We learned that they imprint on the first person they see. They talk about the Witches of Dathomir, which was super cool because they've never done that live action. And for anyone who doesn't know the Witches of Dathomir, basically, some of the coolest stuff, Jedi Fallen Order, they have, like, supposedly the last living Dathomir witch, or at least the last living sane one, based on the other Dathomir witches we see in the game. So that's her. And then you have the Clone Wars, and they also show up in Rebels. And they're super cool. They're the tribe that created Darth Maul, as well as his brother. If you didn't know we had a brother, that's because Solo never got any sequels. They probably would have found a way to throw that in there somewhere. Like, yeah, I had a brother. Yeah, Darth Maul had a brother. He came back to life. He ran the syndicate that the Pikes are actually running right now. I guess technically it was a different syndicate, but he ran a very large syndicate. I don't think the Pikes were technically a part of it, but unfortunately that was before the original trilogy, and I don't think we're going to see that, thanks to Solo not getting any money. And all I wanted was Darth Maul. But things were cool. I was enjoying it. He wanted to pet his Rancor. I'm liking this episode. This really short episode, 34 minutes is 22 minutes. They're putting a lot in, and I'm okay with it. I feel like it's moving really well. And then we get to the part that's not moving so well, and that's, of course, the chase. It seemed cool. He was ready to go out and fight. He was like, I'm tired of doing this. He was going to fight the Jabba. I keep saying the Jabbas. He was going to go and talk to the Hutts himself, and then they ended up showing up. This whole episode was actually him getting further and further to, like, that deep end, because, like I said, he did the tough move with Stephen Root. He did the tough move, he was going to at least, with the Hutts, and then it was like, hey, they showed up first because they were freaked out you would come and retaliate. And so then he was like, all right, let's deal with this crap. Let's go talk to the mayor because, this isn't about to happen. So he was doing some tough stuff, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Then we get the assistant, and then we get the really crappy, low-rent Blues Brothers chase through the market. And I did not like it. Like most people, I didn't like it. It was the color. It was the color of the character. Not the characters. The colors of their bikes just didn't fit Tatooine. And that was honestly it. I was like, even their outfits are kind of punkish and don't really fit the classic just beige brown aesthetic of Tatooine. But I could allow it. Their outfits were not the worst. It was the bikes being Power Rangers. It was the Power Ranger bikes. And so it was too bright. A lot of people mentioned it going slow. I couldn't really tell that. I was so distracted by just hating the colors. And also, sorry to keep sniffing. Oh man, I'm like pseudo coming off a cold. I hate it. But the color was distracting, and then the assistant crashing into everything, which is why I think Blues Brothers. It just looked silly to me. Like, he hit so much stuff, it just got dumb. Because at first it was like, he hit the Apollo boxes. Okay, I'll let that slide. Because honestly, I was hoping the thing was going to end, and it went on for what felt like a super long time compared to what I wanted to see. Because I'm like, it felt like he hit 100 million things. And I'm like, he's just hitting everything. And I think the fact that it's Star Wars vehicles and not like real life vehicles where, you hit that many things, the car is going to move differently. There feels like there's impact. And when it's a speeder, it feels like a bumper car. Because he hit so many effing things. And some stuff was like, he hit an actual support beam that was holding up like barrels and containers. And I'm like, that much weight on it, like, it's not going to be a weak beam that you can just hit and nothing happens. And I'm like, it just felt like it was nothing because he was going really fast, and then he hit it and it bumped off his thing, and then he just kept going until they did pull a Back to the Future reference, which I didn't even catch at the time, which is funny. But a lot of people mentioned like that was definitely a Back to the Future reference. He landed in the manure. Also, the fruit, which I totally can't think of the name of, those first premiered in Star Wars Rebels, so that was cool. But that whole chase, I was like, I just don't like the colors of their vehicles. They don't fit Tatooine. It just looks off to have these bright, shiny Vespas. And even the augmentations look very Coruscant, which is something I heard in a review. Someone was like, if these were on Coruscant, then sure. And I'm like, that's definitely it. Because the color scheme is really what does it. The character costumes, like I said, aren't the worst. They might not fit 100% because, once again, typically beige, brown, and dark aesthetic. And it was definitely like a cyberpunky type of deal, and people mentioned it was a reference to George Lucas's American Graffiti. That's a terrible reference. Like, trust me, I make references all the time. It's a great reference. It's just a bad way to do said reference. And it was just like, you could have done it in so many other ways, but it didn't have to be like these really, really bright vehicles going down this road. And it was just like, this doesn't feel cool. And the worst thing is, there is a comparison, not to keep bringing up. So this show is going to make me think of like Solo all the time, and just how upset I am that I never got to see Darth Maul live action again. But maybe they'll just do a Maul show and just do it animated and just have all that time during Solo, do all of that animated and just have it be Darth Maul. That's all we need, honestly. We have everything else. We have basically from his birth to his death at this point. That's all we really need. It's like that one little chunk, and I feel like it's really cool. So hopefully we get that someday. I think animated would be the best way to have it. I would love live action, but I feel like that's pretty much dead and gone. So animated is the way to go. But either way, this chase wasn't good. The way it looked just didn't really fit. And that was the problem. The whole way through, it was just like, these are too vibrant to be on this planet. It didn't, I mean, like I said, I didn't notice it going slow because I was so distracted by the colors and him hitting everything every, like, 5 seconds it felt. So I never even noticed, like, this actual speed of the chase, but everyone said it looked slow. And I was like, I couldn't even tell. I honestly couldn't tell. Like, it was just, oh, here's, you know, they did the boxes. They did the painting, which at least the painting looked cool because it was an actual Ralph McQuarrie, like, image. And even Boba Fett's in that actual picture, which I thought was cool. But it was just like, okay, and still, it was cheesy. So it was still kind of like, that's a cool reference. But I still kind of hate this chase. And I wish it was kind of over. And I'm hoping, based on, technically Boba did seem like he was getting angrier. Throughout the episode, he seemed like he got to make one move. He was about to make another before the Hutt showed up. And he went to make his third move that episode. None of them really got to end in major violence that he was planning on, like, portraying. But he was trying to get there. So I'm hoping episode 4 and beyond, Boba is just hardcore. Or at least he hit somebody, like just hit somebody, punch somebody in the face, something. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm still enjoying it. I was just really disappointed with the ending. Because I was really excited because the first half I thought was really well done. I was like, okay, he talked to the kids. I don't like how their bikes look. But at first, that was no big deal. And then I got just enough to know that I hate it. Because the chase was long enough for me to keep seeing the bikes and just being like, yeah, that doesn't fit. It doesn't work for me. I wish it did, because then it would have been fine. It would have just been a chase, and then maybe I could have noticed they were going super slow the whole time. But I did kind of hate that it was meant to be funny, and it's the comedic character, but they still could have made it more serious, and he didn't have to hit 800 things. I guess it's funnier now to look back on it, knowing what it's going to be, but just watching, it was like, he hit so much stuff, and just was bouncing off. They had the droid in the middle. Like I said, they did basically the boxes, they did the painting, and he crashes into the manure. And Boba does come down on his jetpack. That looked cool. That was actually really cool. And it was like, I wish he'd use that missile again. That would be sweet. Not the arm missile, but just like shoot somebody off the back. That'll be sick. But as of now, they want to know where the mayor is, and he's dealing with the Pikes. And hopefully the next episode is some semblance of a really cool, epic action sequence. I feel like that's truly what we're missing. Just a great action moment for this series. We have quite a few episodes to go where we can still get that, but we didn't even get, like, the first episode was a cool action moment, and then it died down. Like, they had the cool chase, but it really wasn't the most epic fight. Like, Boba pretty much fell. Like, he still, and I noticed, I was like, this is episode 3, and I still kind of feel like he's getting beat up a lot and not really getting any hits in, and that's got to change. Like, I know, like I said, he was taking steps. I hope we see him open some doors. That's all I'm saying, but I like the first part. I was so excited, and then it just, after the Jabba stuff, after the Hutt stuff, that chase just, it killed the whole thing for me. It was like, it just killed the whole episode, and it was a long, epic set piece, and I'm like, I hate all of this. It's just not entertaining to me, and I would have much preferred just a shootout. That would have been way more entertaining. A shootout, some jetpacks, and just something epic. You know, I mean, The Mandalorian episode 3 was wild. That was when, like, all the not the bounty hunters, but all the other Mandalorians came in to help. If I'm not mistaken, that was episode 3. And that was, like, one of the happiest moments of my life when it came to Star Wars. I'm like, the Mandalorians are finally, like, they have their own show. They're getting true respect now because they are, like, the best part of Star Wars. And this is just like, man, he didn't have to be everything everyone wanted him to be, but he could be cooler because he's really not that cool. The train sequence was great, but we already know he did that stuff, and it's like, what happened between The Mandalorian season 2 and now? Because even what he did in The Mandalorian wasn't super peaceful. He wasn't just like the ultimate peace, aside from him making that deal where it's like, hey, we're fighting you or whatever. I forgot what the deal was he made. It was like, I help you get your son, and I failed, so let's keep going. So we did some stuff, but for the most part, he was still just classic Boba Fett. And then, of course, the end of Mandalorian, he just shoots Bib Fortuna. He hasn't just shot anybody yet. And there are some people that have deserved it, for sure. And he hasn't shot a single person. And a lot of people brought that up, but I feel like it does hold true. It's like a weird thing to... And it's not like no one's involved. Like, Jon Favreau is still around and doing, I think he's still even writing. So I think he wrote all the episodes, actually. So it's not like he didn't know that was in the last episode or whatever. It's like, it's a weird disconnect to even have him start his journey that way, and then everything after that is calm and sparing everybody. And I don't even mind that. It's just the fact that it seems like he's gonna have to fight. It's just the way they're portraying it is super weird, because it's like, we know he's gonna fight. If he's literally going to war, I would hope there's some real action coming up. But it just seems weird. It's like such a disconnect from how actiony he seemed. It doesn't seem like there's balance. I think that's the best way to put it. It was like he seemed like he was still full action mode, and then this seemed like he was just full pacifier mode. But the flashbacks of episode 2, I think, was the perfect balance of him going from full bounty hunter to like the Tusken mode. I think that was the perfect balance. And now I feel like he's too far gone on like the pacifist route. And I'm like, he went through that whole train segment and was like threatening the Pikes, all that stuff. And then I feel like he went to pacifier mode, or at least that's what he got. Like, he had the balance, and then he kind of, in a sense, reverted back a little bit with the action, and now he's back to pacifier mode. And I'm like, I hope we get action mode again. So we shall see what happens. I hope we have some good scenes coming up. Would love to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it, and of course, will there be more action? Plain and simple. Is there going to be more action coming up? I think yes. There has to be. There has to be. There has to be hope. So I say yes. I think something cool is going to happen. Excuse me. But we'd love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.